Okay. I'm going to post this over here. Good evening. My name is Amy Corneau, and I am the Director of Public Awareness for Seroptimus International of Simi Valley. We are a global organization helping women and girls improve their lives and attain economic empowerment through education. It is with great pleasure to welcome you to this important fentanyl awareness meeting. I am delighted to see so many of you here tonight coming together to learn about this critical issue and to be part of the conversation. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that has become a major public health crisis in many parts of the world. This powerful drug is responsible for countless deaths, and its use is on the rise, but it doesn't have to be this way. With awareness and education, we can take steps to prevent further harm and save lives. Tonight's meeting is an opportunity for us to come together as a community and learn about the dangers of fentanyl. We will hear from our expert panelists as they answer your important questions as honestly as possible. We may even hear some of your stories and learn from your experiences too. If you have questions you would like answered, please use one of the cards available and one of our Seroptimus volunteers will collect it from you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for being here tonight. To those joining us on live stream, to our partners, New Beginnings Church, for offering us a home for our meeting, to my amazing planning committee, Naslin Kanji, Michelle Scharf, Michelle Krewall, Beth Semich, Julie Krause, Brooke Rayson, Becky McGuigan, Debbie Samuel, and a special thank you to Pastor Clark and all of his staff. Also, thank you to Adventist Health Simi Valley for donating Narcan, and at the end of the night, we'll have a special presentation, and they'll show you how to use it. Tonight, we are incredibly lucky to be able to hear from our panelists, and we thank them all for being here and part of the meeting. Each panelist said yes immediately when asked to participate, and we thank you all for that. Most importantly, thank you to all of you who are here supporting our community efforts to be part of the conversation. Discussing important issues, whether it is homelessness, trafficking, or drug awareness, is where change all begins. So let's begin the meeting with an open heart and an open mind and be attentive to one another. Let's work together to create positive change. Please look at your program and you will find everyone's bios, tonight's agenda, and resources at the end. And with that, I would like to introduce Pastor Clifton Clark, who will be moderating tonight's meeting. So thank you all for being here.
That was for Amy, so you can clap for me now. All right. So I'm going to be the moderator today. And I'd like to say good evening to everyone. I'm the pastor for New Beginnings Church. If you're here from New Beginnings, just stand, those of you who are here. And thank you very much for supporting. As a pastor I'm working in Simi Valley, over the past 18 months, we've personally buried about 5 people under the age of 30 due to fentanyl overdose. It's a chronic epidemic in our midst. And we're here today because this is a crisis taking place right before our eyes. It's affecting parents, brothers and sisters, people are dying. And as a community, we need to pay attention. We need to recognize that something needs to be done and we need to do it quickly. And so today is about bringing together some of the experts. And remember, this is your meeting. This is a community meeting, so that you can ask questions to elected officials and to experts, because it's going to affect all of us. And so the format for today is that we're going to have two separate panels, and you can write your questions down. You can write them down. So we've already got some questions, but you can also, as you hear different people speaking, write your questions down and give them to, just raise your hands. We have people around, they will take your questions. And also, just in case our panelists are long-winded, we have someone at the front there who is going to help you curtail your answers. So for this first segment then, we have Eric Nazarenko, who is the district attorney. We have Janice Parvin, the Ventura County supervisor. We've got Fred Thomas, the Simi Valley mayor. Steve Shorts, of course, who's the chief of police. And he's also here with Detective Sean Throckmorton, who's in the narcotics division, I believe, and Sean Goodman, Simi Valley United School District. I hope I haven't missed anyone. And so what I want to do to kick things off, to use a football metaphor, can you just tell us, each we can start with Sean, tell us about the work you do and how does it impact the issue of fentanyl? How does your work impact that and contribute towards solving this problem?
Thank you, Pastor. It's an honor to be here. Obviously, the public school system, our focus is education and prevention. The Simi Valley Unified School District has a number of different programs and services in place to educate our youth and our families that we work with as to the dangers of drug and tobacco use, alcohol use, and we provide not only education and prevention services, but also intervention services if we find that a student has been using a substance or has been involved somehow in the criminal justice system or what have you.
Okay. Mr. Thomas.
Well, I got two hats here. One, as mayor of Simi, we work closely with the police department and the efforts that they're doing, also keeping track of trends. The education is an important part, but on my other hat, I'm a trained volunteer with the Drug Enforcement Administration.
Oh, good. Right.
And what I do for them, I head up one of their demand reduction efforts for the LA Field Division. And I'm telling you, this is probably the most dangerous illicit drug that we've ever faced in this country. It's from August 2021 to August 2022, we had about 108,000 people die of overdoses, and more than 2/3 of those were from fentanyl related. And it's just getting worse. So this is something that, education is the key here. We need to let people know it's not just, I'm sure that many of you have heard about the fake pain pills. That's not the only way that it's coming into our system. It's being blended into cocaine, heroin, meth, as a powder, and it needs our attention.
Thank you. Janice.
Yes, I work on everything from the legislative side. We have a legislative platform, so we're dealing with state legislation and federal legislation. So our job is to lobby, talk to our local assembly members, try to influence them on changing laws or approving laws. So primarily that is my function.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Clark, and my thanks to the Sir Optimus and New Beginnings for building awareness, understanding, and education about this epidemic. As the Ventura County District Attorney, we fight the fentanyl epidemic through interdiction, prosecution, and education. I start with interdiction because we are very interested in working with the Simi Valley Police Department, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the FBI, and all our law enforcement partners to make sure that we gather evidence to interdict the deadly flow of this synthetic opioid into Ventura County. Prosecution. If you deal drugs in Ventura County, in particular fentanyl, we now advise you in court, if you do so again and someone should die, we will prosecute you for murder. And then lastly, we have to make sure that we say to ourselves, educate, educate, educate. Just you being here today is heightening awareness about this scourge. You will multiply information, awareness, and education. So we are part of the County Opioid Abuse Suppression Team, a network of public health, the addiction recovery, law enforcement, our public information officers. So we let people know one pill will kill.
One pill will kill. I like that soundbite.
All right,
Chief.
thank you. As you know, our primary focus is on the interdiction and the enforcement. We have had when you think about Simi Valley a few years ago, we obviously were in the news because we were struggling because of the opioid epidemic, and unfortunately, fentanyl has just been a progression on that. So what I've done is made sure that we've allocated enough enough resources to do comprehensive enforcement. So we have an in-house narcotics team that is pretty successful at bringing cases forward for the district attorney's office. I have a detective on the Southwest Border Unit. I have a detective on Ventura County Focus, which is Ventura County Fentanyl and Drug Abuse Focus Team. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that we lock arms regionally with both the DA's office, our partners over in LA County, and the Sheriff's Department, and kind of work together to try to resolve some of the issues with narcotic sales.
Thank you so much. If I could ask Eric Nazarenko, can you tell us what is the penalty for dealing fentanyl in California? Is it a misdemeanor? What is it?
It will be prosecuted as a felony in Ventura County. And I want to emphasize that when somebody deals that deadly drug in Ventura County, we will prosecute it as a felony. The sentencing ranges vary. It will depend, for example, on the amount, whether or not they possessed a firearm when they sold. What priors, if any, do they possess? Do they have a strike or a violent or serious offense in their background? So the range can be anywhere from 180 days in local jail to several years or decades in state prison. It all depends on the individual facts and circumstances of the case.
All right, thank you so much. Just a question here for Sean Goldman. In 2021, there were 224 fentanyl-related overdoses deaths amongst teens ages 15 to 19 years old in California. How prevalent is fentanyl in schools, and what is the school district doing to raise awareness?
Sure. So there's been some media coverage of student overdoses in LA Unified and some other districts. I'm happy to say that we have 0 cases of any opioid use of any student in Simi Valley thus far. We have records when, we have 0 tolerance for any type of substance abuse, and when a student has any type of substance at school, they're subject to disciplinary actions like suspension and expulsion. So we have really good data of what type of infractions students are committing, and up until today, we have not had any that involve fentanyl. The school district has taken proactive actions. We have installed Narcan in every school in the district and the district office. Officer Collado, I saw somewhere in the back there with the Simi Valley Police Department, has been wonderful and has come, and he's a trainer for Narcan or naloxone. We currently have about 400 employees who have been fully trained in the use of Narcan and how to identify an opioid overdose. Becky Wright is our safety coordinator, and she co-presented.
Can you stand so we can see you?
She co-presented the training. So we have about 400. This is the first year that we've implemented this. I expect that at some point we'll have the majority of our staff members trained in identification of opioid overdoses and how to intervene with Narcan.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sean. So, of course, Fred, you've recently been appointed as the mayor. Can you tell us what is your vision as the mayor of Simi Valley to kind of approach and to deal with it? What kind of vision do you have in the light of the epidemic we're facing today?
Well, from a personal standpoint, I want to continue doing what I have done in the past, which is provide drug education programs in our city, make sure that we have those and try to get as many people involved in those as possible, because that's what we really need to do is get our youth and our young adults to understand, what exactly the dangers are. And aside from that, and just, working in tandem with our police department to make sure that, that they're doing everything that they can to be proactive in addressing it.
Okay, thank you so much. And just to ask Janice, what kind of programs or initiatives are you aware of that the county is doing in the area of fentanyl? Are there anything at all?
Well, I know our sheriff's very actively involved in education. I also know you are as well. But I think the important thing to know is that we're talking about it right now, and I know our medical examiner is here, and he's going to speak in the second session of this. But there's some really amazing things that their department's doing as well as far as education. And I'm talking to him, but he has an area where they will come out to the schools and speak to students. And that's how you get the word out. When you have the medical examiner's department coming to talk to the students about drug overdoses, it has a really scary impact on them. It did on me too. But I'm sure when he comes up here, you'll really enjoy the conversation with him.
Right. Now, I've got some questions here. These are raw questions regarding broadly to do with fentanyl. One of the question here is talking about, of course, fentanyl. Is this an offshoot of the opioid crisis? And what does Big Pharma have to do with culpability, this idea that it's a synthetic drugs? And anybody can ask that. I'm not sure if this is more of a question for the second group.
I think pharma, or specifically one company, had a lot to do with the opioid crisis. Fentanyl, no, that is purely a product of south of the border. And it's an extension of our opioid crisis. The demand for opioids were so great, and all of a sudden this inexpensive, alternative came along, and that they could produce and send, in place of the opioid, and they're just manufacturing at a pace. I mean, between local, state and federal level, the amount of confiscation we're doing, we're barely making a dent in the volume that's being supplied to this country, and it's really scary.
Right, and this is a similar question, and again, anybody can answer. Somebody wants to know, where does fentanyl come from? I'm not sure if this is to do with the actual makeup of it, or whether is it being imported, and so on and so forth, those type of issues.
It's chemically made. Mm-hmm. The components of it are coming from China. They're being sold to the cartels in Mexico.
Okay, also, Eric, you wanted to come in?
Correct. The chemicals or precursor parts come to Mexico primarily from China and India. They are manufactured into fentanyl in clandestine labs, typically found in northern Mexico. And they come through commercial vehicles, semis, automobiles, primarily at points of entry. And just to give you a sobering statistic, because I want to highlight this before I forget, in the Ventura County DA's office, in 2019, pre-pandemic, we had 18 cases, 1-8, involving the drug fentanyl. Either someone possessed it, was under its influence, or sought to sell it. Fast forward to year ending 2022, we had 635 cases.
Wow.
To underscore and accentuate the crisis we are in, that is more than a 3,000% increase in the Ventura County DA's caseload involving fentanyl.
Wow, that's incredible. A number of questions are coming up about Narcan, and one question wants to know, when will Narcan be readily available to the public? Anybody got any thoughts on that?
Well, I know, I think in Simi Valley, we have 2 distribution centers, and I know there's some people that could probably answer that on the next panel, but it is accessible to the public.
Okay, good. Yeah, so again, there's a lot of concern about children, And it says, one questioner says, how is fentanyl being marketed to kids? Are you aware of anything like that?
Well, we don't have anyone marketing it in the schools. Our goal is to educate students about it so that they avoid those substances. In terms of how they market it in the community, I think there's better experts to answer that.
Right, okay.
I have my detective answer.
Okay,
that,
where is
so
he? Okay.
Kind of answer. There's several different passages as to how it imports within the community.
So it starts a lot of ways. Opioid addictions start from people using prescription opioids that then advances, they get addicted, and they can't get those prescriptions anymore, so they move to the illegal drugs. They start buying pills, which are expensive, so they move to heroin and eventually to fentanyl. How it's marketed to kids, it's not directed specifically for kids, but it's given out more than heroin now, and the local dealers will sell to anybody they can. You can buy it off of Snapchat, you can buy it off of Craigslist, you can buy it off of OfferUp. Any of those places, you know the keywords, you can go find it, and that's how they find it.
Okay, another law enforcement related question. It says, or it could be to do for you, Eric. Why are dealers being released and going back out to sell more drugs? And how can we stop that?
We have to make sure they're held accountable, and our narcotics unit in the Ventura County DA's office is well aware of this epidemic, and when someone sells this deadly synthetic opioid, they will seek the highest sentence they can achieve in state court. So I want to begin by letting the audience know we don't want to punish addiction. We can't prosecute ourselves out of this problem. Mm-hmm. The way we win this is through education, information, and a public health strategy that's married to a law enforcement one. But if someone is dealing this drug, we don't want a revolving door. We will seek the maximum sentence. And again, if they should sell and that sell results in a death, we will then proceed with a second-degree murder charge.
There's a question that's a good follow-up to that point. The questioner wants to know what happens when you initially catch them. If somebody was be caught and you warn them, it's just a warning, or?
No, on the initial investigations, once we take them in custody, what happens is we prepare a package, send it up to the DA's office, and then they go through arraignment. And obviously there's different administrative methods that the DA can talk about as to whether they're going to be held in custody or they're going to be released on their own recognizances or they have to post bail, but they are there until they're arraigned.
Right, great, thank you so much. Fred, there's a question that wants to ask, what kind of programs do we have in CME for drug rehabilitation? What kind of programs do we have for...
Rehabilitation?
Yes, I mean, I think that's what type of drug prevention program does CME Valley have?
Well, we've worked with the police department on numerous occasions, putting on education programs in the past. And with this current issue, we are definitely in the, planning on doing more of that. But the other part of that is educating other groups, because, any group in the city can be a part of that solution of educating the public. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Maybe I could follow up on that a little bit. Ventura County Behavioral Health has the alcohol and substance abuse section, and they're responsible for the education and prevention. The police department, we're stakeholders, and we obviously want to assist that, but we're going to follow their lead. Some of the preliminary plans that we're having right now, or in discussions we're having right now, are to reimagine our previous heroin task force into a new task force and have it connected with the county-wide opioid task force and kind of work together to push out information. And what I believe what will result, once we get that all together, is you'll have academic or school education, but we'll also have community outreach education being done in our civic center where, parents and family members or anyone can come out and get information and resources.
Just while we're on this, Chief, somebody wants to know, have your deputies had to administer Narcan on the job? Did they carry it with them or not?
Yes, in fact, I believe the first week that we deployed Narcan, we were fortunate to actually have 2 police officers that are also paramedics. One of them that was a paramedic had a save, and he's here now. It'd be interesting to hear his story and let him tell you. He had another save, and I think he's had about a total of 4, where he didn't realize he was administering the Narcan to a family member, and he hadn't seen the family member for years, and he had decompensated so much, didn't find out until later in the call that it was actually a relative of his.
All right, you said the person is here now?
Yeah, he's here outside.
All right, okay, wow,
Might be
that's
able to get him.
incredible. Somebody was asking about the DARE program and asking why can't we bring that back? Does anybody know
Yeah,
about that?
The DARE program was run in the 1980s and 90s, and over time, researchers had done research on it and found it to not be very effective, and so that's why you don't see it as much anymore.
Okay, all right.
Let me just back up on that, because I hear some people that sound a little bit upset. The police department is part of education and outreach, but what I'd like you to wrap your mind around is that there are people that are better out there to teach drug education than police officers. We should be a piece in that pie, for sure, but we need to get the right people. That includes people that have lived experience and people that have the academic background, and those are the best folks to do our educators. What we do well on and what we need to focus on is on the intervention and the enforcement, and really putting the resources towards that. That does not relieve us of our responsibility to be stakeholders.
Right, right.
The DARE program didn't evolve over time. It stayed static. At the same time, our youth became more sophisticated with more information, more real-time access to information, and that's why it became updated, I believe.
Wow, yeah.
They did numerous studies, and it wasn't just the Harvard Law Group, right? I mean, a lot of studies, and they proved that it really was not very effective.
Right.
But it was costly at the same time.
Yeah, Janice, while we're talking, how do you feel about the interagency cooperation? Is there a sense in which, whether it's the police, the different departments, are they working together, or are they just doing their own separate silos?
No, they work well together. All the departments.
There's
an amazing amount of synergy going on between cities and the county and all the departments within the county.
But in regard to the fentanyl issue particularly?
Yeah, on the
Okay, right.
fentanyl issue, yes.
Right.
Pastor Clark, if your audience is interested, to go on any Google search engine and put "fentanyl is forever" or "Ventura County responds," you'll see the county working to build awareness, to talk about how to prevent fentanyl from coming into schools and neighborhoods. You see billboards, bus stops. That's a countywide effort. And I want to parse out, if I may, the 635 cases that I spoke about earlier. We inquired, of those 635 fentanyl cases, how many are misdemeanors, how many are felonies? 89% are misdemeanors, which suggests that they are people who are addicted. They either possess it, not for sale, but for personal use, or they're under its influence. The other 11% are those who are dealing the drug. You go after them hard and aggressively, that 11%. But the other 89%, they need detoxification beds, addiction recovery, and public health strategies. And that's what this county is doing. We will be opening up detoxification beds at the Ventura County Medical Center.
Okay.
We're also going to have a residential drug treatment facility in West County. So that's the way we can combat this on a law enforcement as well as a public health perspective.
Right, that's great. What about CME? Are there any, in terms of if somebody's about to overdose or somebody wants treatment for addiction, drug addiction, is there somewhere we can take them in CME? Does anybody know? Or do we have to go to the county?
The
Go
hospital.
out.
Well, if they're dealing with overdose, the hospital.
In terms of, you're speaking of inpatient treatment, an IPU.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Inpatient unit. So there isn't currently an inpatient
No.
unit. Simi. You know, there's a lot of discussions within city government and county government about getting some of those services over on this end of the county. And those conversations are robust and they're going on right now.
Right.
Right, because we often have people who are, we speak to, we do outreach to, and they're ready to go to get treatment, and we have to look outside of CME and other places to take them.
I can tell you, like, my community policing unit that has folks that work vulnerable population, people with mental illness, homeless, they are continually running into people that are suffering from substance abuse disorder, and they are working with the Samaritan Center and the other social services agencies, and they're even actually, if they're able to get a bed, whether it's over in Tarzana, Reseda, or if it's in Ventura County, physically taking people there if there's an opening to get them help. A lot of times when people are suffering for whether it be alcohol or a drug substance abuse disorder, they have to be ready for help. And the hard part is there's not enough beds, right? And so sometimes it's just a timing issue where we catch them at the right time. The county has a resource, or one of our partners over in LA County has a resource, and then we do whatever we can to transition them in and hopefully get them some stabilization.
Right, thank you so much.
So we are definitely working on that, right?
Right.
As we speak.
Okay, I've got a lot of questions. People are asking about the border issue. Why can't we stop it coming in? I mean, we spoke about it before, but I don't know if you want to address it. And I know that it's not just people from outside, because there's been some high-profile cases of people, even in office, kind of trafficking and selling drugs. Can you just speak more about where is it coming from and why we can't stop it? And it's coming in as sweets, as you call it, candies and all kinds of things. I mean, is it an impossible task? Are we fighting a losing battle in terms of trying to bring it in? There's so much sophistication about it.
Mayor, did you want to talk about that from the DEA's perspective?
Well, the number of vehicles, both private and commercial, crossing that border every day is probably hundreds of thousands. And you have these drugs being, smuggled in personal vehicles, in tankers, in semis, and mixed in with products. I mean, they're very creative in how they do it. And the reality is, it's not a large volume, so it's easy to hide it among something. Just one example: one single bust of a semi that had fentanyl, they were imitation opioid pills, had enough pills on it to kill 100,000 people just on one truck. So it's hard to catch it all. We're catching a lot at all levels, but they just keep sending it.
What kind of percentage, to take a rough guess, are we
I don't
catching?
think anyone would want to try to guess that.
A guesstimation. It's difficult to say. Right?
The fact of the matter is, as long as there is demand, there is going to be, unfortunately, a supply. It's just, if people want it, it's going to come in. But that doesn't mean we don't try to stop it. I mean, this county is incredibly aggressive on interdiction efforts. As long as I am the DA, I will work with all my law enforcement partners to make sure that we are engaging in electronic communications and surveillance techniques to make sure we know where it's coming in so we can seize it. But it's in so many different places at so many different times that you have to address the demand side and say, don't take it in the first place, therefore the supply will not be there.
Right. There's a tremendous concern about fentanyl in young people. And there's a question for you, which states, what can be done to create consequences for social media platforms which facilitate rapid sales to youth, fentanyl use? And that was directly to you, Eric, I'm afraid.
It's a great question. I actually signed a letter in support of a state proposal that's in Sacramento right now that will extend the amount of time that Snapchat is required to maintain communications between users. We all know the disappearing nature of that social media platform. That is one effort that's very important to me, because what do we know about the illicit pill market? As Mayor Thomas spoke of, and Steve Shorts, our chief of police, people will use TikTok, Facebook Messenger, Snapchat, other social media platforms, and legitimately believe they are finding an Adderall. Or maybe they're gonna go ahead and find a Valium or something for their anxiety or depression. Guess what? Each and every one of those pills has to be presumed to contain fentanyl in it. You take Lincoln's head on a penny. Just think about that image. Lincoln's head on a penny. That's the amount of fentanyl that can kill somebody.
Wow, that's
So,
scary.
you know, I think in terms of our messaging to our youth, our schools, do not take any pills through social media or any other illicit markets and social media platforms, because it can kill you.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, you mentioned the officer. Is he still here? I wanted to hear.
Just walked out.
Oh, just get him for me. I would love for him to share that. But let me see if I can read this one. A lot of people are talking about, I mean, how many of you here know people or friends or family that you know died of fentanyl related? Can you stand stand to your feet so we can see? Any one of you can say that. All right, you can see. Thank you so much. Someone wrote, my son passed away in November 2021. And there was a case here. One of the members of our church had to bury one son, I think it was in March, and I think 4 or 5 months later had to bury the second son. And those were the 2 sons that this particular parent had. Tragic situation. Someone wrote, my son passed away in November 2021. We were able to provide names, addresses, company of the dealer, as well as witnesses. They still haven't picked him off the streets. What other information is needed? I think you can see where the question is going, right? In order to get the dealers off the streets. So someone, you talked about it, Eric, someone provides, fentanyl, somebody passes away, the parents know where it came from. They contact law enforcement to say, this is a person that's been dealing the fentanyl, and this person says nothing has been done. Can you speak to that?
I'd be happy.
Not in specifically, but in general. Yeah.
Sure. Whoever that is, please meet with myself. The chief of the Bureau of Investigation is here, or Chief Shorts. We would like to know how we can follow up on that case. We want to make sure that each and every one of these deaths is reverse investigated.
Okay, right. Okay, wait there. Okay, right.
And what I mean by reverse investigated is we seize the cell phone. We look at text and electronic communications to determine who may have supplied the deadly synthetic opioid to them. We go ahead and gather witnesses. It sounds easy, it's very hard. These cases, people do not speak. There is fear, there is shame. Oftentimes, because of the disappearing nature on these social media platforms, the evidence we think is going to exist does not, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
So if a parent, we should continue to do that, then we can provide the police with the information and so on and so forth. Okay, right. Now, Chief, you mentioned, and I wanted to hear this anecdotal. Collado was going to. He wasn't here at the time.
Right.
Could you just brief him? Yeah.
Officer Collado, who we're blessed to have at CBPD. Officer Collado has an interesting perspective in that he was a paramedic in Ventura County prior to becoming a police officer. So one of the programs, he's a school resource officer, which is obviously, as you know, works with our kiddos in town, does a lot of investigations, but he also oversees a lot of our medical programs, including our Narcan program. So some of the questions they had, Gene, is maybe you can answer how many Narcan saves yourself that you've had, and how many do you think that we've had total since the officers started carrying them?
Well, like the chief said, I've been a paramedic out here prior to all of coming into law enforcement, going to the dark side and all that kind of stuff. During all this, I come from a family that has lost a lot based on, back then it was more of a heroin addiction than it was a fentanyl addiction. I've lost a father, I've lost a brother, and then so it was real near and dear to my heart when it came to all of this kind of stuff. So when we were able to be one of the first departments in the county to be able to carry Narcan, I jumped all over it. Being a paramedic, all of my people that I worked with throughout the years are all now the heads of EMS and everything else out in the county. So they allowed me to basically bring this program here and to be able to run it. The first time we had it, within a week, we ended up using it. Unbeknownst to me, the person that we were using it was my nephew. Had no idea. I knew that he was dabbling into things, and when we get a man down on the street, I assess him. You know, you're looking for eyes, you're looking for respiratory rate, you're looking for unconscious, and all these other great things. Well, what ends up happening is I don't even recognize him on the ground. I see his friend, and I ask his friend, "Who is this?" And as soon as he turns around, he's like, "Well, that's Bryce." I turn around, and the officers that were with me just see me turn beet white. Because now it went from okay, this is what we know, this is what we do, to now it's personal. So me personally, this is probably one of the best asset that we can have with this department into saving lives within this community. We have all this great things on our belts and things like that we can help protect, but this is one of those ones that we can actually change a life. Not sure if anybody's ever seen it work. It's very similar to diabetics. As soon as you give it, there's only two things that looks kind of like the movies, that somebody will be completely almost dead on the ground and come back like that. This is one of it. I don't have exactly the numbers of saves. I've had 2 personally myself, but I will tell you, all the naloxone, it's what they call it, that we have, I run the whole entire program, so anytime that we use it, every time that we restock it, I have to notify EMS. I will venture to say that we're averaging about twice a week that we have to do this. Good thing is, within those average of twice a week, we haven't had any deaths with that. So that's the most important thing about all this kind of stuff.
Thank you so much. Well, this is a good place to take a break. I want to say thanks to Sean Goldman, Fred Thomas, Janice Parvin, Eric Nazarenko, and our Chief of Police, Steve Shaw. Put your hands together for them. We're going to take a 15-minute break, but after the break, we're going to be having with us on the panel Dr. Christopher Young, Ventura County Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Ira Tills, Emergency Medicine Physician, Dr. George Cave, Psychologist, and Pat Montoya, President of Not One More. So don't go away, just stretch your legs a little bit. We're going to be back at 7:30.
Which is what is getting mixed in with the cocaine and with the heroin and stuff, about 25% of it, and the pills, about 12-13% of it that we confiscate have xylazine.
One more thing. Please keep the questions coming. Keep the questions coming, okay? We need more questions.
Central nervous system suppressant that makes fentanyl even deadlier and it is immune to Narcan. That's what we're starting to see now across the country.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah. So.
Oh, that's really bad.
Hi there.
Okay, everybody, let's resume. Can I ask my panelists to come down, please? All the panelists, if you can make your way to the stage, I'll appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, we might
Remember,
need to-
right, if you got a question, my detective's here,
Okay.
and we got...
Yeah, we got some more questions. Oh, wow. Yeah, can you? My man.
There
my
you
man.
are. I mean, we're going to go over to see you. Very well. It's really good to see you. Thank you for doing this. I tell people I go to one pastor is as a spirit chaplain in other churches and bringing this to their awareness. You know what I'm saying? I go, they wouldn't, I would just spend time with them so much. I go, you know, our families go to church. Our families also dying. I go, how can we bear that yeah. And that's, and I was a witness to that too. Somebody, again, my mom died. I go, one kid died at like 3 years old. This kid died. And my mom died. My mom died because she just didn't know what she treated herself. Of course.
What is he talking about?
Right? He was out there traffic directing. Yeah.
Okay, everybody, let's make a start.
Should we go ahead and go on up?
Yeah, you got your seat up there. Put your hands together for our panelists as they take their seats. Well, thank you once again for coming tonight, and we want to begin like we did with the other panel. Just tell us, beginning with Dr. Tills, tell us about your work and how does it kind of interface with the issue of fentanyl.
Sure, and thank you for having us here. I appreciate it. My name is Ira Tillis, and I'm the Chief of Staff of the hospital over at Simi Valley at Bennett South. And I'm also a practicing emergency physician. I've been doing that for the past 23 years, and I've been over here at Simi Valley for the past 15. It's my group in the emergency department. I think the reason I was invited here is I'm the physician champion for our Substance Use Navigator program, and we'll talk a little bit about that, I suppose, as time goes on here, but we're very proud of what we're doing here to hopefully help with the fentanyl crisis.
Okay, Pat.
Okay, my name is Pat Montoya. I'm president of Not One More. We're a nonprofit here in Simi. We started here in Simi 11 years ago. Parents, families, and friends that were trying to deal with the addiction issues. I represent the families and the people that are affected by drugs out there. We put people into sober livings. I go to high schools and speak. I also speak at the juvenile probation department, diversion program, and we're just here to help somebody, help everybody out. We have expanded to 19 chapters across the United States now since we started right here in Simi Valley. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Young.
My name is Christopher Young. I'm a forensic pathologist. I've been practicing for almost nearly 20 years. I've been the chief medical examiner here in Ventura for almost 6 years in July. And so my role here is that The medical examiner's office is charged with determining why people die, the cause and manner of death for deaths that are sudden, unexpected, violent, or suspicious deaths. So all of the overdoses that happen in Ventura County are diagnosed through our office. If somebody dies, we sign the death certificate. We do an autopsy on those individuals. And every year, I take this very seriously. We put out a statistical report, and it shows which drugs, we're very meticulous about determining which drugs cause the deaths. And my philosophy is that you need to find out which drugs they are quickly. In some offices, they're underfunded. We have great funding here, and we're able to get toxicology results quickly so that it can be actionable. So law enforcement, so the community can respond. You know what drugs are causing the deaths.
Thank you so much. Dr. Cave, we're so happy that Dr. Cave is the, what we call our in-house psychologist here at New Beginnings. And so Dr. Cave, tell us about your work in fentanyl.
Well, work with fentanyl. I work with drug use. I started my training as a psychologist at Vista Del Mar Hospital. I was familiar with that. There's a detox unit there. And then I went to work as a clinical director at a drug rehab facility. And we treated any type of substance dependency. And for the last 5 years, I've been in private practice, whereby we don't, in private practice, we don't, the person has to be sober for at least 30 days before we can treat them. And if they come in before that, then I highly recommend them. We help them find a place to detox and then to do usually it's a 30-day rehab and then an intensive outpatient program or a partial hospitalization program. And that's a pretty good start. And then eventually, people that are having addiction problems will hopefully go to individual therapy and stay there for a while.
Okay, thank you so much. So we've got a list of questions here that came in from the audience. So I'm going to just kind of do rapid fire and just, if it's something that you feel you can answer, just jump in and let's see how we go. How does that sound? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. There's a question for you, Dr. Young. It says, how has fentanyl use changed throughout your career? Has it been a part of the opioid epidemic through all the years of your career?
That's a great question. So the opioid epidemic has really been taking place through my whole career. I was in medical school in the 90s. I was trained to prescribe long and short-acting opioids that pain shouldn't happen in your patients. And then during the majority of my career, it's been mostly people overdosing on heroin and prescription opiate drugs. And I've heard about the fentanyl crisis. It started on the East Coast. And if I encountered fentanyl, it was usually somebody misusing a patch, a transdermal patch, chewing it, putting heat on it, putting too many on. But it's not until 2020 that I've actually seen fentanyl really in action and illicit fentanyl. The death rate in Ventura absolutely skyrocketed halfway through 2020, and it's unlike anything I've seen in my entire career.
So you think that was related to the pandemic, the coronavirus? Why it?
No, I don't think it's related necessarily at all. It's just that, and I broke it down in 6-month increments. So the first half of 2020, it was kind of the same rate that we'd seen in previous years. And the second 6 months of 2020, the death rate skyrocketed. And we've been at that same level ever since. And it's just because this drug is so potent and so dangerous, and people, the death rate is an indication of how dangerous it is.
Wow. Well, there's a question also for Dr. Tillis. It's, the questioner asks, how do hospitals detect when, if someone has a drug in the system that is unknown, that's an unknown compound, i.e. like when fentanyl first hit the streets but was not a known street drug yet?
That's a very good question, because until just recently, we didn't have the ability to test for fentanyl specifically. We now do over at Adventist Health, and it's done through a urine test, and it's an opiate, of course, like any other opiate, and it sometimes isn't picked up on routine tests. It has to be specifically looked for.
Right, thank you so much. There's another question here for Dr. Christopher Young. It's the questioner asks, please talk about the demographics of fentanyl overdose victims.
The demographics, well, and that's the thing with fentanyl overdoses. I think a lot of people who feel removed from somebody who's overdosed don't realize that it's not just a problem of people experiencing homelessness. In 2022, we had 181, I think it was, fentanyl overdoses, and it was, out of all of the accidental overdoses, it was only about 30% of those individuals were experiencing homelessness. So we're seeing people from all age groups. The majority of fentanyl is between the ages of 30 and 50. And we see people who are students, we see people who have jobs, we see people who are struggling. It really crosses all lines. And part of the problem is that it's a drug that can be disguised. So some people know they're getting fentanyl, but sometimes it's in something that they don't realize they're getting fentanyl when they're using it.
Oh, wow. Indeed. Question for Dr. Cave. The questioner asks, why would someone use fentanyl when they know it would kill them?
That's a good question. It's called an issue of cognitive dissonance, where people know that bad things could happen, like smoking cigarettes. It says right on the label, like, smoke this, you're going to die. But people still smoke it. They believe that it won't happen to them. And so fentanyl is extremely potent. People chase after the initial high. And it's hard to tell a person. That's why education is really, really good. But heroin is, 10 times more powerful than morphine? And fentanyl is 100 times more powerful than fentanyl? Fentanyl is 100 times more powerful than heroin. And when people start to use it, they oftentimes, there's this thing called also the adolescent fable, where adolescents, for example, believe they're immortal, that nothing bad will happen to them, and even when it happens to their friends, they'll continue to use it. And so it's an uphill battle, because people do know it's dangerous. They do know it can kill you. And once you start down the brain starts to shut down, better have some proximity pretty nearby.
And can I add?
Go ahead,
a little
yes,
bit?
yes.
Also, because of the prescription drugs being more regulated now, those prescription drugs aren't available now to people, and abusers, let's say. And then also heroin's not available as much as it is, as fentanyl is.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are going up to the next level.
Wow.
They're leveling up. And the people that I deal with, the people that I see on the streets and stuff. So,
I agree
and the
with that.
families that I'm dealing with.
If you look at the chart, you look at prescribed opiates and heroin are dropping off, but fentanyl is skyrocketing.
Right.
Wow.
It's easier to get, it provides a much higher feeling of euphoria, and of course with that comes the risk of dying.
Yeah. I have a question for Pat Montoya, but just say a bit more about Not One More. Tell us a bit about what do you do? What's the main purpose
11
behind it?
years ago, we started here in Simi Valley, and it started because what we were seeing going on with the prescription drugs, our moniker was pills to heroin. So we were seeing this, epidemic of pill use, pharmaceutical pill use out there. And then like somebody had mentioned on the last panel, that started tapering off, so people started going to the street drug and trying to illicit drugs, which was heroin. And so we came in and we didn't know what we wanted. We were just parents that were concerned for our community, and we just wanted to, to provide some kind of education here and find out who's providing that, and trying to do that. And it's been an uphill battle. It's been an uphill battle as far as being on the street level part of it, trying to get that support sometimes.
So your organization is on the awareness side.
So the awareness, we give out Narcan. I go into schools, as I mentioned before. I think education is a big deal. I think we can get to some of these kids, and bring somebody in. Somebody else mentioned that in the last panel about bringing in people with that experience in those areas that maybe somebody in recovery or something. Or I bring a family member that has lost their child. The biggest impact I ever seen in a school was when a mother comes in and speaks the loss of her child.
Oh, okay.
And very impactful.
Still with you, Pat, what can we, somebody asked, what can we as a public community do to help this epidemic, fentanyl? We are so far from it.
I think collaborations with all the groups that are here tonight, collaborating more. I think educating. I think parents need to be more educated out there. A lot of parents, a lot of people say it's not my kid, it's not going to happen to us. I've educated my kid. He's an athlete. He's all this. But I'm here to tell you by personal experience, I've had all that. And that didn't work. I have no power over my kid when he's into that. And it's just like bringing in that communication and trying to find out before it gets too deep into it. But I get the calls of, when parents already have their 15-year-old already using meth or fentanyl. Fentanyl, not every bit of fentanyl users are going to die from it. A lot of addicts are using that as the alternative to their heroin, and so that's what we're seeing out there. Not 2 milligrams will kill you, right?
Yeah.
It will kill you for a non-user. That depends on your tolerance level too. Yeah. So.
And this is for Dr. Young or Tillis. We often hear fentanyl being used legitimately in a hospital, and at the same time, it's a killer. Can you just tell us about the medicinal use of it?
Oh, that's probably more me. Fentanyl's a great drug. It gets the onset of action is about 60 seconds. So if you're coming in with a fractured femur and you are in incredible pain, you're going to want the fentanyl.
Painkiller. So
yeah, for sure. So, and in every ambulance in this entire county and the fire department as well, we have fentanyl. That's our drug of choice for taking care of your pain out in the field before you get to the emergency department. Of course, it's done under, it's tightly regulated. We watch it very closely. But fentanyl is, when used properly, a very good drug. It's synthetic. So it's not like morphine or heroin in that it has fewer side effects. The nausea is not as bad in my experience, not personal experience. But when used properly, it's quite a good drug.
So where do you get it from? The hospitals and the...
Well, we get them from the drug companies that have been making it all along.
Okay, so it's made also, of course, just for the public, it's made here in the United States.
Sure. One of my jobs, I'm the medical director for AMR ambulance company. The police department stole Gene Collado from AMR. We'd like him back. He was a very good paramedic. But yes, I write prescriptions for the ambulances to carry fentanyl.
So what are the safeguards to overprescription?
I'm sorry, say it
to
again?
overprescription. People are often saying that keep going back to the doctor and they give you more and more. I mean...
the safeguards. Okay, so we have the Cures computer program right now. If you're going to come into your physician and want a prescription for an opiate, say Percocet or Norco or something along those lines, and it's going to be more than a 3-day supply, then that doctor is obligated to go onto the Cures program, look up and see what other narcotics you have been prescribed, or controlled substance, I should say, over, I don't remember, probably a 6-month period, maybe a year period in California. And that gives you some idea whether or not the patient might be doctor shopping, trying to get other narcotics or controlled substances from other physicians before he or she comes to see you.
Right. And I may be a little bit slow, but so I'm still learning about this. So the drug companies, of course, are manufacturing fentanyl, but also fentanyl is being shipped and trafficked into the country. I mean, how can we know whether the problem is coming from the border or is it being leaked out from the drug companies or so on and so forth?
So the prior panel did focus on the precursors coming from China over to Mexico, getting them put together in illicit labs, then trafficked up for use in Northern America. I would say it also that's probably the majority of the illicit use here in this country. But oftentimes we get problems with borrowing ground mal supply, or I've seen kids that have gotten into ground mal supply of opiate medications. So it is prescribed medications as well. That's still a very big problem in this country. So it's not just the illicit drugs coming up from the border.
Yeah, can anybody answer this question? The questioner asked, physiologically, what happens to your body when you take fentanyl?
I can handle that. Fentanyl is a central nervous system depressant. So it slows down your breathing, and the majority of people die because they're no longer breathing effectively. The thing that's interesting with fentanyl is I've seen opiate deaths throughout my career, and when somebody dies, say, of a heroin overdose or prescription drugs, sometimes that can be a prolonged death where there's respiratory depression, there's fluid accumulating in the lungs, and you might even see some inflammation because it's happened over hours. But what we're seeing with fentanyl is that people are dying instantly, right when they use it. They're still clutching their lighter. They just die right after they smoked it. They have a piece of tinfoil they might be burning it off of, and they just collapse forward. And it's so potent. And there's something called wooden chest syndrome where people they stop breathing and their muscles become very tight. And so that's potentially one of the mechanisms that's happening too.
And that's related to this question as well. The questioner asked, can fentanyl pill be put into soda? And can it dissolve? Can you dissolve it in a drink? I mean,
In other words, to slip somebody something at a bar.
right? Yeah,
I believe it can be.
and it's deadly.
And it comes in many forms, as it was mentioned earlier by the police, like Chief Short said over there, that it comes in the powder form, it comes in, whatever, comes in as cocaine, it comes in whatever form it comes into. And it's in the bars,
Wow, wow. So there's a lot of questions about, of course, Narcan. One questioner asks, what are some of the challenges in having Narcan available to the public, i.e. administering the shot? I can't read. But yeah, what are some of the challenges in making Narcan widely available? Are there any challenges?
Oh, sure. I mean, basically, people have to know that it's out there. They have to be comfortable in using it. They have to get the education to do so. So currently, if the ambulance arrives at your place and you've just overdosed, and you've been given fentanyl, and just like Officer Claude was saying, come back to life quickly, and then they decide that they don't want to go to the emergency department, which they really should do because there's always a possibility of whatever opiate they had lasting longer than the Narcan, and there's always a chance of a recurrence. But they should go, but sometimes they don't. What we do now in this county is we leave some Narcan at the person's house, or with the person, or with the person's family. So we're trying to get it out there. If you come into the emergency department and you get a prescription for any narcotic, you're going to get, ideally, you're going to get a prescription for Narcan to fill at the pharmacy. If for some reason you want to do that, we do have Narcan samples, just like you have out there in the front, that we can give you as well from the emergency department.
Yes, interesting.
we give out Narcan as well. So people come and they'll call, and we'll just leave it for them.
Yeah, because one person here is a pharmacist, and they wanted to know whether they could. It would be great to distribute Narcan to family members of kids undergoing detox. Can I order these Narcan free? If so, where from? Can I? Ventura County Public Health. Can you make note? The person who asked that question. Okay.
Pastor Clark, if I may.
Oh, go ahead.
One of the down pitfalls of having that drug on hand, some people will think that I can go ahead and use this fentanyl and I'll be okay because I've got this antidote right here. And like Dr. Tillis said, that the drug itself can outlast the Narcan. And therefore, the person can continue to have problems. If I can back up on a couple of questions, what it does to your body, the way opiates work in the brain is we have naturally occurring opiate receptors in the brain. So if we get injured seriously, for example, and all of a sudden it doesn't hurt because neurotransmitters attach to those opiate receptors. They're naturally occurring in everybody's brain. When we take opiates from outside, it fills up those receptors, but in all likelihood, we've taken more than there are receptors. So the brain will develop more receptors. So it's going to take more and more of the opiate to get the same effect. Eventually what happens though, which this can cause all kinds of problems, and the feeling that it's being chased is that feeling of euphoria, because if you've ever had an opiate, like a morphine in a hospital or something, you feel no pain at all. But what happens then is the bad stuff will start to happen. The brain will start to react. People will start to vomit. And that's an indication you've got a problem coming. And the next stage will probably be, in all likelihood, the person will pass out, and then the respiratory distress. And if it continues, the person in all likelihood will die.
And if I can go back on one of the questions as well, as how do you identify what's a prescription drug versus an illicit drug? You can't. I think the flyer this Seroptimus Club put out today showed that one pill could kill. You don't know what you're going to take. That's, you know, as somebody mentioned, I guess on the last panel was, you know, don't take it from, you know, the app, you know, internet, you know, sales or anything else like that. But also the other part of that is don't take it from a friend. You know, even, you know, I deal with a lot of different stories out there, and, you know, these kids are using it, and they self-medicate, and they look to each other to get some of this stuff, and they know where to buy that. And it isn't always from grandma's, you know, medicine cabinet, or it used to be until fentanyl hit the boards, but, you know, but it was, you know, now it's just that we're seeing the kids can get it wherever they can purchase.
Right, okay. Thank you so much, Pat. Dr. Tillis, if a parent has a child who's overdosed, and we take them to see me hospital, just up the road here, tell us what will happen. You get through the door. What can a parent expect would happen from that point?
All right, well, that patient's going to be, within minutes, rapidly assessed by our triage team. That they will then evaluate whether or not there are any vital signs that would indicate that there's a potential life-threatening emergency. If there is, that patient's going to be put immediately back into the emergency department. Even if we have no room for that person will come back. We will establish an IV very rapidly, and we'll try to give the Narcan intravenously to get them back. While we're doing that, they could be turning blue. They could be not breathing, and we will be supporting their respirations. So that's potentially a very scary event, especially for the parents to witness.
And on top of that, the scary part is I sat in that emergency room with kids out there, and when that Narcan hits, they want to run.
What do you mean?
They want to get out of the hospital.
What do you mean?
Because they're no longer feeling it, so they want to go out and get high again.
Wow.
So the scary part is I've had to talk them into staying, you know, because they're not feeling anything. They're not feeling that high anymore. And then they want to run.
That's...
So we can't, you guys can't hold them. You can't hold them there, so they, you know, they end up leaving.
Wow. So the abnormality of being normal.
What's that?
The abnormality of being feeling normal,
they don't
right?
like that part. They wanna
Christopher
get
Young.
high.
No, that's the tragic thing. We have investigators that go to scenes and they get the story of how somebody overdosed. And sometimes we have individuals that have been given Narcan because they are passed out, they're not breathing, they're turning blue. They wake up and they're angry, and then they go back and they use it again, and then they die later that same night. And we also have people who have a Narcan kit right in front of them, but they're using alone. So you can't really give yourself an antidote when you're passed out. So it's those are really sad, tragic situations.
Wow.
And with fentanyl out there right now, it sometimes takes more than just the 2 doses you get in that box.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
so, you know, a lot of times, you know, I heard a story today, somebody just told me, you know, it took them 4 doses to get out, you know, to come out.
Yeah.
So it's more than just you got your Narcan. The mu receptors are now free of the opioid, and you're feeling back to normal. So you want to get out of the emergency department. It's not just that. If you're a habitual user and you get a Narcan shot, you're going to be an instant withdrawal. And there is not much in this world much worse than the feeling of being in opiate withdrawal.
Oh, so it's not just feeling normal then?
Right. For the habitual user, you're going to feel awful. You're going to be throwing up all over the place. Oftentimes when they wake up swinging. They're very angry. And sometimes it could actually cause them to have a very high blood pressure, and they can have problems from that down the line too.
And they could die?
It is possible to die
Right.
from that.
And there's a good question from a question. I want to ask the questioner to come out because I want you to read it. I can't understand your writing. But it says, given that studies have found that 10 to 15% of individuals who are treated with, is the person still here? Can you come out so you can actually read that question? Oh yeah, can you come outside so you can actually read this question? Or can you just ask it? Do you want to read it or do you want to just ask the question? Come out here. Put your hands together for this young man.
For the record, I have bad handwriting myself.
Well, it's got some big words in there. I can't remember.
Naloxone.
Okay, go ahead.
So studies have found that 10 to 15% of individuals who are treated with naloxone end up overdosing and dying within a year of that. Like you were saying, they leave the hospital and go back to using drugs. It's also unable to reverse overdoses from cocaine, meth, and any non-opioid. I think that highlights the importance of increasing access to treatment for the individuals. What would the community's plan be for that, given that CME from the prior session doesn't have any treatment centers?
Thank you. What's your name? Connor. Thanks so much, Connor, for the question.
That is an excellent question. We don't have the ability to send these folks to a lot of inpatient beds in this county. There's a great lack. For that matter, there's an extreme lack of mental health beds in this county as well. And I believe somebody said, Chief Shorts was saying, those facilities are on the other end of the county. So here in Simi Valley, there is not a lot. We do have behavioral health out here, and they're very helpful. We have the crisis teams, and they're very helpful. We have the emergency departments, but not a lot else.
Right.
Is there a plan to fix that?
Was the question also said that it's an antidote for cocaine and whatnot? Because it's not.
No.
Yeah, okay. Because it's not.
No? Okay.
Yeah, it just works on opioids.
Let me just say this.
Go ahead, sir.
We have not seen a reduction. We still see, our detectives are still seizing a significant amount of benzodiazepams, marijuana, which, as you know, has a higher THC than what was seen years ago, heroin, all those other narcotics we are still dealing with actively.
Amphetamines.
And all the amphetamines, those are still here. This is in addition, and then now obviously there's these tranquilizers that are out that we haven't seen yet, but they are starting to show their head out in LA County.
That's xylazine.
Xylazine.
Which is resistant to Narcan as well, right?
Ask you have a question.
Can you come out? Come out here. Come on. If you're going to talk, we need to hear you. Okay. And tell you who you are. Who are you?
So my name is Maria DiBattista, and I'm the clinic administrator for the Simi Valley Behavioral Health Substance Use Treatment Services. And my daughter's right there, and she's like super embarrassed right now. Come on, Julia. No. So we have a clinic here over by the Cultural Arts Center on LA Avenue and Church. We're right by the fire station, and we provide outpatient services. We also provide medication-assisted treatment for people who are maybe wanting to get off of, stop using alcohol and other drugs. I'm not an expert in that, so I don't want to give wrong information, but we do have a clinic here where if you guys wanted to call and ask questions, or you can call me directly, happy to answer any of them. We have, and I gave it to this lovely lady over here, our contact phone number, where you can call an access line and we will get you assessed or your loved one assessed. If they're willing, we can't make anybody do it, but we'll do what's called a screening to see what kind of level of care we can provide, even though we don't have beds here in Simi, and I'm hoping someday we do, or I'm hoping actually someday we don't need them, we will get them the services that they need. So we do have the county clinic, we also have AGES, and there's other programs that are privately funded, but there are some treatment centers here.
Thank you so much. Okay, a few more questions. Still, again, about some rapid questions so you can maybe answer. Is it dangerous to administer Narcan if a person has not taken fentanyl?
No.
Okay, good.
Just right there, done. No.
Is there an expiration date on Narcan?
Yes.
Yes.
The answer is yeah. Are there any adverse side effects of actual Narcan being used to revive a fentanyl overdose?
Well, you're going to have a very unhappy person. But you know, the vomiting, anger, high blood pressure, generally they'll be achy all over. They'll have goose flesh, just all the signs that you would normally have for withdrawal. You'll have it right then and there.
Okay, great.
You're still alive though.
Right. Dr. Christopher Young, I'm going to ask you kind of an open-end question. Because I know you've been researching this. You've listened to our conversation. Is there anything else you think would be important from your perspective to add that we haven't talked about, that you could just give an opportunity to talk about it without it being a question?
I just think that events like this are so important. Our county has done a spectacular job, the Coast Group, behavioral health, just getting information out to the community, making sure people realize why people are dying. And if you don't identify why people are dying, you can't save lives. And so we really have come together as groups within the community, but I love that the community's here. And I hope we can get it to where we don't have any more people coming to my office. That would be my ultimate goal.
So again, Narcan, if somebody administers Narcan and the person is not experiencing an overdose, it won't affect you, will it? Okay.
Yeah. It blocks receptors that are not being used. But this might be a good time to talk about the Simi Valley Substance Use Navigator program.
Okay, go ahead.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Is Sean Wilson back there? Sean Wilson.
He's going to come up, actually. We've got a segment for Sean.
Oh.
It's called the Sean segment, so
Okay.
he's going to come up.
All right.
He's got his own show.
Oh.
So, so don't worry, he's going to be coming up here.
He can do much better justice, and I won't steal his thunder.
All right, so just a couple more questions here. Dr. Cave, somebody asks, how do you start a conversation with your children? What's the age appropriate to start conversations about about fentanyl?
Boy, that's a tough one because younger kids don't need to know about this stuff. But definitely by high school, maybe even middle school. Also to see what kind of friends people are hanging out with. I've got a family member, distant family member, who started using heroin because a football player got injured and started using opiates, and they couldn't get the prescriptions any longer, started using heroin. The whole team started using heroin. And that was 12 years ago, and he's still using heroin. And so, you've got to have that discussion at some point, but I think the discussion is you don't take any drug that is not prescribed by a doctor. You take it the way it was prescribed, and you don't take anything off the street. Now, for example, my brother in high school, he was taking everything, but I wouldn't. And the reason being is I was kind of terrified that I don't know where that came from. I don't know what it's going to do, so I wouldn't do it. But my brother did, and here we are 50-some years later, and he's still using. Now, luckily, he doesn't use anything that would kill him, but it could. It could. And the only other thing I want to say very quickly about treatment, most people who are using opiates, fentanyl or otherwise, need to go into treatment. They need to be detoxed, and then they need to go into residential, probably a partial hospitalization program. And I was a clinical director at a place that had 4 residential houses. We put through hundreds of people. Not one person who came in locally made it through the program. Not one. They left within days. And the reason being, it's too easy to call somebody, have them come throw some product over the fence, or have somebody come pick them up. And our places were geographically isolated, so you couldn't just walk out. I mean, you got a 7-mile walk to the gas station, but they would call somebody. So oftentimes it's best to get the loved one out of the state, and have them go someplace where they're geographically isolated from their friends and other people that might provide them things you don't want them to have.
Thank you so much,
Especially young people.
Dr. K. Now, just your last question, just closing comments, just an opportunity to, in 30 seconds each, just to give you a closing comment, whatever, in relation to this topic we're talking about today. I'm going to start with Dr. Tillis.
Sure. I mean, basically, it's going to be repeating the same thing the first panel said. Meetings like this, events like this, are excellent, getting the words out. Hopefully everybody will tell everybody else and it will spread out with regard to the danger of fentanyl. I mean, it's just so potent. It really, one drug can kill you just a little bit. There's no, you can't experiment a little bit safely, is the bottom line. And hopefully we can get a handle of this. I would love for there to be some treatment centers in Ventura County, especially on this side of the county. But I will stay tuned for that.
Okay.
So I think education is important. I think nobody wants to be an addict. Nobody wants to die from this. And I don't know anybody that out there that says this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It's hard to get out of. And I do believe that fentanyl is a poison, not just a drug. I think it's a poison.
Thank you so much.
And up to the point of one of my board members had lost her son about just over a year ago. So that's due to the fentanyl use.
Dr. Young.
It's maybe a weird thing to say, but I'm kind of excited. I'm excited to meet Pat. I want to go talk to kids. I want to help prevent these kind of things. I'm excited to hear from Eric Nazarenko. Eric Nazarenko is talking about harsh punishments for people dealing fentanyl that cause deaths. I've testified in federal court in Oregon, and it's effective. People, if there's consequences, it'll really help. And I think we just have to keep moving forward. And the numbers can be discouraging, but we have to keep doing everything we can because they could be much worse.
Okay, thank you.
Well, once again, the key is going to be education, talking to our kids, making sure they understand the seriousness of taking things that you don't know what it is. But a lot of it is working with kids, especially in high school, maybe even middle school, and parents talking to their kids about things. And they don't got to be scared. They don't have to say, you better not do that, or else. You tell them, we don't take anything that's not prescribed. And when we take something prescribed, we take it as prescribed. And that's what we do.
Right, just the last point, I know time is going, but we hear about the task force. I don't know if Chief wants to talk about the task force in terms of community working together. Will that be revived? You want to talk, can you mention something about that?
So, and I know, Pat, I think you were on the last task force. We're in the process of reimagining the task force and making sure that it's connected to the overwide county effort. And so those discussions are being had at the municipal, the county level, and with all the nonprofits on how we can do a good job, have it really focused on prevention and education. And certainly the police department will help out by providing information on our investigative avenues and what our achievements are. So hopefully that'll be something that we're going to have up in the next few months here, and we're working hard on that. It's a project that we're working forward on.
All right, yes, you can clap. That's all right. I want to hand over now to turn me back on, please. Thank you. But just to say, from me as a pastor of this church, thank you. We here are committed to this fight, and we want to be involved in any way we can. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to hand over to Amy at this point.
Thank you all to our panelists for being here on the county and the city and the community level. You have made our meetings spectacular and informative, and thank you so much. There are a couple cards that were given to me that are actually community information. The nice lady who stood up here said that there are programs in Simi Valley. I do have the phone number and the information, and they also give out test strips that are fentanyl test strips. So Samaritan Center has been asking, and so you can get together and figure that out. And there's also another, it's called Bright, B-R-I-T-E. It's info@brightyouth.org, which is another place that you can contact for help. Also on the back, the last 2 pages of your program has different resources, not resources to get drugs, obviously, resources to get help. So if you want to look at your program, and what we didn't know is that May 9th is Fentanyl Awareness Day. So those are just our closing. Thank you all for being here. We're going to have Sean Wilson come out from the Adventist Health, and he will be giving out Narcan and actually telling you how to use it. So please welcome Sean Wilson. And we have, yep. Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Sean Wilson. I am the Substance Use Navigator for Adventist Health Simi Valley. I work under Dr. Tillis here. My job is to intercept the patient after the overdose or once they're in withdrawal. I go in, I assess them, make sure they're within the right criteria, and we start them on a medication called buprenorphine, or commonly known as Suboxone. Part of my job is community relations and spreading awareness. So an opportunity came up to get the hospital certified by the state as a Narcan distribution center. So I took full advantage of that. It's been hugely successful. Anybody in the community can come in, just go to the ER and ask for a Narcan kit. It's that simple. Okay? One of the other things that we do is I hand these cards out in the community. They're out at the table, you can see them. Along with addiction comes a huge stigma and a lot of self-shame, right? Any good addict in their addiction is not going to go into an ER full of strangers and get vulnerable and say, I need help. It's just not going to happen. With this card, they can take it, give it to the receptionist, they know exactly what to do with it. They say, have a seat, they call me, I come up, I do my thing. It takes that stigma away from that patient. Okay.
Sean, I've given that card out electronically to people as well.
Awesome.
So thank you for helping out on that, yeah.
Of course.
So, yep.
So, how do we use Narcan? It's very simple. If you can use a nasal inhaler, you can use Narcan. It's just a nasal spray. It's that simple. So if you come across somebody that is overdosing, first thing you do, obviously, call 911. Get the professionals running. Check them, do the sternum rub, all that. And then just take one of the kits, insert it in the nostril, and push the red plunger. That's it. It's a one use per dose. 2 units come in the box, so use one, roll person on their side, because typically they're going to vomit, and you don't want them aspirating or getting it on you. And then kind of back up, because frequently they're going to come up swinging, because they just got donkey kicked awake, basically. If the first one doesn't work, use the other one in the other nostril.
What do you say doesn't work?
If you give them the first dose and they're not responding still, give them the second dose in the other nostril, whichever one you didn't use. If that doesn't work, obviously start CPR, hands-on compressions. Does anybody have any questions?
Does it have to be breathing to work?
That's a good
No,
question.
actually, I think it would probably be useful if you can get it on an inhalation. That's probably best. But basically, it gets absorbed through the mucous membranes, through all of the nasal passages. So there's a chance it could still work even if the patient's not breathing.
Just rub hard and fast with your knuckles right here. Induce pain, induce a response, pain response. Yes, 2 in 1 package.
Is it right to say that Narcan doesn't stop an overdose, it just delays an
will the overdose, like, will the opiate still take effect 2 hours later? Is that what I'm-
It depends on which particular opiate you've used. Ideally, if it's fentanyl, which is a quick on, quick off, it will be the total treatment. Sometimes the same thing for heroin as well. Sometimes with these longer acting opiate preparations, sometimes with Percocet, where you're still potentially absorbing it from pills that are inside your intestines, there's an ongoing amount of narcotic being delivered to the person. So yes, you can have a relapse and then have a problem as well. But honestly, usually the fentanyl takes care of it. I'm sorry, the Narcan takes care of it. Fentanyl is the problem.
Just lost some points there.
A couple in the back, in the very back there. Well, again, you don't know what drug they're on, so, but they're not responsive, so try it. Again, it's not gonna hurt them if it's meth that they're on. Exactly. Yeah. I'm sorry? Yeah, that's a. Two minutes. Sorry, you had a question? Okay. Do you have a question?
I was just gonna say, there's people online that are hearing the question, so if you could repeat the question, if the audience is asking, so they can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's people online that are hearing the question.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you.
Yes.
So if you administer the first dose and it works, 2 minutes later you do have to give the second, or no, you do not?
If you're a family member giving this out, you should be calling 911 as far as that goes. Don't just depend on the Narcan to get them through that. So,
That's the thing I've heard from first responders where the fentanyl is so potent, they've had to give multiple doses. So giving more, if it's not working, there's no problem with that because there's no harm in giving it.
I'm not a doctor. That would be the professionals up here.
It's an opiate antagonist. So it binds to opiate receptors and blocks the effect of the opiates that are acting on the body. So it's a rapid reversal of an overdose. That I don't know. I think it was designed specifically for this, but yeah.
I didn't hear the question.
I'm sorry, if we
I
only have
couldn't-
expire? Oh, expired. Yeah, again, it's better than nothing, right? Yes? So the boxes we're handing out tonight expire February of 2025.
Okay, so they last more than a year.
Yeah, I got this batch about 7 months ago. Any other questions?
There's one right here, Sean.
I had a friend in a different state call me asking about her daughter addicted to fentanyl and asking me, she thought that I'd be able to help her, give her an answer where she should go. And I thought of Not One More, but I know that that's local. So the question is local though. When somebody has an addicted family member and they don't know what to do, where can they turn? Should they go to Not One More? Are there other resources for them that they can go to?
So as part of my job as the substance use navigator, if I have a patient that does want to go to treatment, that's where I come in. I start researching different treatment facilities, which ones take their insurance, whatever the factors may be. So I have a network of treatment centers that I work with closely. I can usually get somebody into treatment if they want to go within an hour or two.
And on that too, on that behalf too, when people call from out of state, I'm usually on the phone looking for those resources as well, but I also tell them, look in your, just Google it. You'll usually find, that kind of help, detox, whatever it may be. Just like we have here with our behavioral health and stuff like that. They have a behavioral health in their own states. So yes.
My question is, what if you don't have insurance? Because I know a lot of insurance companies will cover substance abuse, detox. What if you don't have insurance? Does our county or state have a place for you to go to?
County, unfortunately, resources are very limited. That's one of my biggest struggles. What I do suggest to the patients is treatment is a fairly new trend over the last 30 years or so. Millions of people have gotten sober just going to 12-step meetings. If 12-step is not for that person, there are other things that are not faith-based. There's smart recovery, refuge recovery, tons of different choices for them. Bottom line is, if they want to get sober, they're going to get sober. Yeah. Ma'am, you had a question.
I was just going to ask if you keep in your car, but I was reading here that don't let it exceed 104, temperature of 104. I was going to ask.
That's the guideline.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Could you tell people the difference between what, because naloxone and Narcan are used interchangeably, so that they understand that it's the same thing? It's just like, Narcan is like saying Phoenix. It's just naloxone, right?
It's a brand name.
It's a brand name.
Yeah.
So when people say that's Narcan, naloxone, it's the same thing. It's just a brand name.
I'm not answering because I'm not a doctor, but
Right?
Yes.
That's correct.
But people are confused by that.
We can also get you on the drug Suboxone. If you're a habitual user and you are interested in getting on something that's safer for you, you can come in and get on Suboxone. Suboxone it's buprenorphine. It's a opiate agonist, antagonist. It has the benefit of getting you to the point where you can function, getting to the point where you are not going through withdrawals and feeling awful. And it has a safety effect too, because while it is an opiate, it has a ceiling effect with the respiratory depression. So even if you take more and more of it, you're not going to have a problem with not breathing. In addition, because all of those mu receptors are filled up with Suboxone, if you end up taking fentanyl on top of it, it's again protective for you, because it binds to those receptors more closely than does any other opiate out there.
I think there was a question in the back out there.
If you're dealing with a relative that's an addict, I've dealt with it personally, and one of the craziest things that you would think that helps you is not, this is an uphill battle to get them to go to this outreach and all this, and it's great for us to say, like, you need to do this, you need to do that. The number one thing, somebody came up to me and goes, hey, Rob, you need to go to a meeting. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I'm not an addict. Did you hear what I was talking about? No, go to a meeting. And of course, you've researched, you've tried all this other stuff. That person won't listen. You go to the meeting yourself. And from then on, you just try to go to 3 or 4. And there's groups out there like Nar-Anon. I know people have heard of Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff like that. that's fine too. But you can go to Al-Anon or Nar-Anon, they're a little more specific to family members. But it's the number one thing that will help you and eventually help them. So just
Thank
to let
you.
you know that's out there.
Right.
Thank you.
It is.
Okay, so let me just say thank you to everyone for coming today, and let me particularly say thank you to this Optimist team, and particularly Amy and the team. Put your hands together for them. And I would also like to thank Steve Nazarenko, the District Attorney, Janice Parvin, the Ventura County Supervisor, Fred Thomas, the Simi Valley Mayor, Steve Short, of course, our Chief of Police, and Sean Goodman, Simi Valley United School District, and also our last panelist, Dr. Christopher Young, Ventura County Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Ira Tillis, Emergency Medicine Physician, Adventist Health, Dr. George Cave, a psychologist, and Pat Montoya, President of Not One More. Put your hands together one more time. Thank you for coming, and stay safe out there. God bless you, and we'll see you again. Take care.